Everybody, welcome to another episode of MUSE TV. We are here talking to, sorry, let me do that again. I just got notifications popping up, which just sucks. Let me turn this off really quick. Oh, shoot, I thought I had that off. Sorry about that, guys.
No worries.
No worries.
Hi, Charles.
Okay,
Oh, man.
well, now we're ready to go. So, we'll start right now. And hey, everybody, welcome to MUSE TV. We are back with another bite-sized Halloween short that we just saw, and it's called Unicorn. We have Charles Gould, Matt Porter. Where did the story come about? Because when I read the title, I was thinking something completely different. And this was just craziness all around. Where did the story come about?
Well, first of all, I would like to know what you were thinking when you first read the title.
Well, I was thinking of actual unicorn that was going to kill
actual
people.
unicorn.
An actual unicorn that was going to
Yeah.
kill people. And then when I
Right.
saw it, I was like, wait, this is something completely different.
A unicorn that kills people. That's the movie version, I think.
Yeah. Exactly.
This came from, so the term unicorn is a term that I'm kind of familiar with because it's just kind of like out there in the world. And I initially wanted to do a short film about a guy who shows up to a threesome, but then like can't perform and it ruins the night for everybody, because that was kind of like a nightmare for me. Not that I've never had a threesome or like been in threesomes, but it's just something that I've always thought about, like what would happen if I showed up and that's like the worst case scenario, because I'm a comedian, so I tried to think of something that was funny. And then when this opportunity came, Matt and I were talking, because it kind of came from Flex, which is a short Matt and I made about me kind of like being bi and like exploring that side of myself. So we wanted to keep it in that realm. And then I told Matt the threesome thing, and we tried to figure out, okay, that's definitely a horrible nightmare. What's a way to like make it very, very scary? So we kind of figured out like it would be funny. Well, how much can I say?
Well, I mean, you could say it's out now, so I guess you could
It's
talk
out,
about it now.
Well, I'll just
So
add
we
that I
kind
think
of-
that I think that a thing that really cracked it open in that conversation for us, Charles, was that notion of, you know, I had not really heard unicorn used in that way. I had maybe heard unicorn used as like just in a more general sense of sort of a unique person who's, you know, like the Goldilocks perfect thing and some sort of complex spectrum of things that someone could be. But I had not heard it in this context. And then when we were talking about it, I think we landed on just the fact that there is something also very mythological and sort of like classic horror about that word, because there's this element of like the blood of a unicorn, this sort of like ancient mythological brewing of something that kind of that was kind of a moment of cracking it open, I feel. You know what I mean, Charles?
I agree. Yes.
Yeah, because it was
Yes.
it's a, like when you start it, you're kind of seeing where you're going. You're like wondering, okay, what's you automatically think something bad is going to happen.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking at it, I was like, it was so lighthearted. There's certain points that are scary and yet lighthearted and funny.
Right.
Because there's one scene that I'm just like, I was busting up laughing. And I was just like, this is so smart. It's such a smart way of doing it. And it all deals with the demon. I just like, when you're doing something like this, where you're mixing that horror and comedy, like how is it to be able to get that? How hard is it to get that perfectly done? Because it was like perfect timing, perfect matchups, especially with your actors.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know, Charles, do you have something for that? But I think what I would say is both of us come from comedy, and I think also both of us have a deep appreciation for genre. I personally, as a director, have never really done horror, but I've definitely done, I always have really appreciated taking something that is very genre, whether it's in terms of the premise or it's in terms of the style that it's shot, and then finding humor in the sort of naturalism and sort of keeping things grounded, because I think there's something that is so common in genre. Some of the worst genre things to me are ruined by people just being very not real and being very genre in their performance. And I think it's always fun to blend genre people with non-genre and to sort of pivot between those styles of performance or those styles of filmmaking. So I think, yeah, like even something like that first scene in the living room, or even the scene that you just kind of referenced where we have this sort of demon figure, there's like, it's very, I think that maybe because Charles and I are not necessarily coming directly from the genre world, I think for us, a lot of times the funniest thing to do is to make the genre world feel real, but then let the humans in it be real as well. Like, I think, you know, I always think that one of the reasons why Star Wars is a good genre film more than others is because there's this sort of weird naturalistic 70s acting to it where people just feel a little like just lightly annoyed with each other in a relatively grounded way, more than I think things prior to that were. Like all of a sudden, it's very common, thanks to even things like what we do in the shadows and stuff. I think that there's this move towards people understanding how funny it can be for there to be this big genre world, and then for Charles to be in the middle of it being like, I'm sorry, am I being weird? Did I do something wrong? And I think it's easy to forget that we're all just humans plopped into these situations. And I think that creates comedy kind of easily without then taking away from the horror or taking away from the genre, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it really does. And how was it working with 20th Digital on on this project? How were they? Because it's everybody that we've talked to so far in the last 2 days have been saying that they've been very supportive on all the ideas and everything that you guys were doing and what you needed to do to make this thing happen. So how was it working with 20th Digital to get this completed?
Oh, it was great. There were so many times throughout this process where me and Matt were like, okay, who's going to tell us we can't do this? And because, you know, we have like, because we weren't really sure how much we were allowed to get away with. You know, we have like sexual overtones, we have like partial nudity, I guess. I mean, I don't want to get anyone too excited, but there's like, you know, we have like scantily clad actors, we have cursing, we talk about threesomes, we talk about sexuality. We were just kind of like, okay, who's going to tell us we can't do this? And they never did. In fact, they even pushed us further, I think.
Yes. Yes.
Well,
To be bigger and weirder and funnier.
and now that they're owned by Disney, you automatically sit down in that type of room and you're like, okay, who's going to say no? Because I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we do see this short in the larger Cruella universe, you know. Yeah.
Cool. So was there like a plan or a thought process of maybe, because like I have talked with the other directors and they say that these things could be picked up and made into longer versions for full feature length. Is there an idea maybe possibly doing something like this in a feature length type of format?
Oh, definitely. We've started to talk about it. It's a very fun exercise to sort of take something like this that is also especially so rich with the world building. I mean, I think that's something that Charles and I also both really enjoy, is comedy that also weirdly has like a deeper, larger world to it. I mean, I know, Charles, you mentioned that you've been watching True Blood. I know that for me, I recently watched a lot of zombie movies this past year, and I just think there's this fun element that doesn't always get moved over into comedy, of world building and creating all these sort of the mythology and the world, even if it's ultimately just a dumb comedy. So I think we've been diving into that just in the last few weeks, and it's been very fun to be like, well, what happens, based on the rules we've set up in the short, that what does that mean for the larger world? What does that mean for Charles's larger existence? You know, Charles Gould, I mean.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think also, as Matt mentioned, we're comedians. So, you know, doing this horror, I mean, it's not my first time doing horror, but it was definitely my biggest involvement in something that was horror related. And I just like had the time of my life. It was so fun because it's like you said, horror and comedy are very related. They're very close. And so it didn't feel totally out of the realm of what I'm used to doing, but then also just like splashing blood everywhere and like screaming at the top of my lungs and like being able to think of the craziest thing you could possibly think of and then watch it actually happen. Like like we were like, okay, there's a demon who comes out of a shrine after fitness influencers chant a mantra that fitness influencers would chant. We just thought of that in our head. And then Ava Jones is an incredible production designer, and Sarah Lornica did the makeup, and they made it happen. Like we watched a demon come out of a shrine with like fitness influencers. Like what an insane, amazing genre to be a part of. So I had so much fun. I can't speak for Matt. Matt maybe had the worst time of his life, but
I did not have fun. I didn't have fun,
Yeah.
that's for sure. But I'm glad, but for you to have fun, I mean, that's good. And I will just, as long as we're, I want to also definitely shout out Brianna Baker and Patrick Woodall, because those two actors who play the couple, and Mike Lane, who plays the demon, of course, and Vince Caldera, right, who plays the YouTuber. I just will shout out everyone for being on the same page tonally as well, because I think that Brianna and Patrick especially, they had to also follow that tonal weirdness of like, this is a comedy, but we have to be legitimately scary, but we also want it to feel like these are kind of weird people that are awkwardly making their way through something that they don't do every day. And like, I think they rode that line really, really perfectly. And it's true. I mean, horror and comedy are just subverting expectation in many ways. So I think it's a similar muscle, but it was fun to work with all these people that I think really got where we wanted it to live, you know?
Yeah. And then that's one thing, like I talked to a couple people who design mazes, home mazes and the big theme park mazes, and they all say the same thing. Like you look at the people's reactions, they'll get scared and immediately there's laughter.
Yeah.
Which and I think that's what you guys did the best out of this, is that you had that fear factor, but yet you'll get people to laugh at very certain segments. And I think your ending is the first ending that I've seen all this season, where it wasn't just fade to black, go into credits. It actually continues a story at the end, which I was cracking up, because I was just like, oh my God, this is classic. Like it's literally classic comedy.
Yeah.
So what was the thought process continuing instead of just going to a regular credit and extending the story and doing that for the credits?
I mean, you have something, Charles?
Well, I think that comes from Matt and I being comedians and needing to end everything on a joke. Like when you're a comedian and you're writing comedy, or you're doing stand-up, or you're writing sketch, you can't just fade to black at the end. It has to end on the funniest part. Like the end is supposed to be the part where people laugh the hardest. You got to go out on a huge laugh. Not that we were necessarily trying to go out on a huge laugh with that final shot, but we did want to end on a joke.
Yeah. And I'll go.
Well, we actually had a literal joke where I step out, I'm covered in blood, and then I go back on my phone and try to find another threesome. But we felt like it was either too hard to shoot, or we just decided that maybe that was a little too jokey. So we landed on what's in the movie.
Yeah. I've always been a big fan of a long, sad wide for comedy. So it's just a good long, sad wide shot. And also, I think, Charles, we probably ended up going away from that also because there was something really funny about being able to roll credits over a single shot at the end there, because it's that energy of like, he just returns to the world now, you know? And I think you're right, Charles, that it's not just from comedy, but I also think when you come from comedy, even if this was a full drama with no jokes, I think we would probably need to button it, to use a comedy term, with something. Because I think I always feel like I can't quite fade a scene out or end a scene when writing without, even if it's a dramatic scene, finding that way to, in one more way, kind of like change the energy or close the book in some way. And I think that last shot definitely has that close the book energy, that sort of like epilogue, like, you know, without that, it could easily cut to credits and you'd be like, you don't get to think about the rest of Charles's night, and that would be a shame.
Yeah, and I agree, because like the simplicity, I'm sure it wasn't simple to get what you needed to get, but it's like it's that simplicity is what made it such a perfect ending. to what this
Yeah.
is going to be. So I love it. Last question: what can you tell the Muse TV audience to get them to go onto Hulu and watch Unicorn?
Besides, like you get to see me in like skimpy underwear.
Yeah. Besides that.
Um, I think honestly, it's like what you said. It's and what Matt has said. We really strive to make like a really funny horror comedy that was funny and scary and a little bit of a comment on like dating in like the Instagram world. And so I mean, if you're a fan of horror and you're a fan of comedy and you're a fan of horror comedy, I think we really tried really hard to do all three of those things. And yeah, I mean, if you want to laugh and get scared, who doesn't want to do those two things? You know, go watch Unicorn.
Yeah.
Sorry, Matt is better at this than me.
Well, did we mention that you're in skimpy underwear?
Not yet.
Okay, well, you can see Charles in
Feel free
skimpy
to throw
underwear.
that out.
It's the best place to see it on the whole internet. I think maybe Charles, there's other places that I don't know about, but I think that would be my number one pitch.
My OnlyFans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. Everybody, thank you so much for being Charles, Matt. Thank you so much for being a part of this, being able to talk about your film, and definitely watch Unicorn on Hulu. It is on now, part of the Bite Size Halloween series. You can find the link in our description. And thank you so much, guys. Look forward to talking to you next for your next project and see where this goes. And we'll see you next time here on Muse TV.